Hey, what's up, everybody? Benji Bruce here, and we're going to talk about making a name for yourself. I'm going to talk about how a nobody went and built an entertainment empire. Now, I could have said an entertainment business, but entertainment empire sounds better. It sounds like making me look like Rockefeller or something. So that's why I'm going to use the word empire instead of business. And I'm going to walk through the whole process. And a lot of people, I mean, you'll get a lot of marketing tactics from this, but understand the psychology of what's going on with what I'm about to say. So basically, I'm going to talk about two things: image and influence. That's how I built everything in my business: image and influence. And you'll see this process as I go along. So my problem in the beginning was, how do I freaking get clients? Like, how do I get companies to pay me a lot of money to present on a stage? And that was the biggest problem. And I sucked at lead generation, and I sucked at getting them to pay a huge amount. So I thought to myself, well, what do I do? And so what happened was, in high school, I was at a house party. It was me, my brother, and one of his friends. And the friend comes over during the house party, and he's pissed off. He's like, "Oh my God, I'm about to whoop this guy's ass." And he's like pissed off. And we were like, "Well, what's up? What happened?" And he said, he was like, there's this guy in here. He took these dollar bills and he turned them into hundreds. And then all of a sudden I told him, do it with mine. And he took my dollar bill and put it in his pocket and walked away. And so I'm thinking like, oh, I've done this before. Like I've done this specific trick before on TV. I'm like, okay, if there's a magician in here, if there's an illusionist in here, then I want to talk to this guy. So while my brother's friend, he's pissed off, I'm like, where's the guy? Where's this entertainer at? And so I go over to him and I introduce myself, and I'm like watching him, and I'm like watching him perform, and I'm like, okay, whatever, this guy's decent. And then I realized, like after talking to him, I realized that he was getting way more business than I was, like way more. He was charging more than I was at the time. And I'm thinking like, what in the world? Like this guy, he's no better than me. I mean, at the time I was like, man, I'm way better than this guy. And shoot. And so I'm wondering like, what is he doing differently than me? And so basically, there comes a moment in your business when you realize that you got to step up your game. No matter what you're doing, there has to come a moment when you realize, you know what, I'm playing it way too small. I got to step my stuff up. And that was the moment for me when I saw this other entertainer who was no better than me doing the same thing that I did. And not only did I do this, I've done it on TV. I was like, man, I got to step up my game. And so that was essentially the first moment. And a lot of people don't realize that it has nothing to do with your product or your service. I mean, getting business has absolutely nothing to do with your product or your service. It's about exposure. You can have the greatest product, you can have the greatest service in the world, but if nobody knows you exist, then you don't exist. And so that's what I realized. It's about exposure. And so what I did is I built a sales process, and I built a sales process in terms of just calling people and doing all that. And I was trying to figure out the sales process myself. I was reading some books and everything, but I built a sales process, but it wasn't too effective. And so I couldn't charge high fees. So I had a semi-okay sales process, but I couldn't charge high fees. And so my problem was, why do they pay one person a high amount, but they don't pay another person a high amount? It had nothing to do with who's good, who's better. I thought, why is it that this person gets paid so much and this person is like practically non-existent, can barely get anything? And I realized one thing: it's all about image. 100% about image. It's about what surrounds something. And so value is based on what surrounds an item, not the item itself. If you go into a museum, you walk into a museum, you see like this vase. And there's this vase and there's a glass around it. And then there's like alarms. You know, there's alarm systems around this thing. You just say, oh, that vase must be pretty expensive. Like, oh, it must be pretty freaking valuable if they got this vase in there. There's a glass case around it and it's locked up and there's all these alarms. There's freaking 2 security guards sitting there. You're like, oh, this thing must be pretty expensive. Even though you see no difference between this thing and the vase that you can get at like Walmart. I mean, you understand that, okay, the reason why this vase is valuable isn't because you know it's valuable. It's because of what surrounds this thing. And so I realized that's what happens with everything, especially when it comes to selling yourself as an entertainer, just selling yourself as a service. I mean, anything. It could be a fitness trainer, real estate agent, insurance agent, no matter what it is. The reason why one person gets paid more than someone else is because of who they are. And I realized this. I said, when someone charges a high amount, it has nothing to do with their product or service, and it has everything to do with who they are rather than what they sell. And so once I realized this, I started thinking, how do I improve my image? What do I got to do to make myself look larger than life? And so at the time, I was performing in restaurants, and I was doing a lot of restaurant magic. In fact, I started my first restaurant magic gig when I was 13. And so I'm still doing it in high school, I'm like still performing, and I think, how can I improve my image while I'm doing these restaurant gigs? So what I did is I basically got video footage. I was recording myself. At the time, they had flip phones. I mean, they didn't have the nice camera phones like iPhones and stuff. So it was a flip. Not a flip phone, it was like a flip recorder, and those were pretty cool. It was just easy. And so you just record. I was recording myself, and I would get video testimonials. I would get everything in terms of, how do I improve my image? How do I improve my image? And what I learned with the video testimonials is that I would focus on people's emotions. So how emotional were they when they were giving the testimonial? It's not just, oh wow, Benji was great. It was like, oh my goodness, this guy's, oh my goodness. And so I would focus on the emotions, because the emotions of a video testimonial, it would demonstrate to other people who could hire me, here's the response that I'm going to get for you. When you bring me in, expect this from me. And so that's why I keep telling people, get so many reviews, get tons of testimonials, because that's essentially what you're telling people you're going to do for them. And so I started doing that. I started getting testimonials, started recording myself, and I looked at bigger crowds, because remember, I thought to myself, okay, venue determines value. And that's what was going on inside of my head. Venue determines value. So if an entertainer were to perform in a restaurant, then it's like, okay, he probably doesn't charge that much. If the same entertainer, if you were to see the same guy perform in the White House at a White House dinner, and he's doing the same tricks, the same thing, he's turning dollar bills into hundreds here, dollar bills into hundreds here, he does the same things, but he's in the restaurant, here he's in the White House. Which one do you think is charging more? And so I realized venue determines value. And so as I recorded, I'm in the restaurant, right? As I recorded, I would kind of zoom in, make sure you couldn't really see the surroundings of the restaurant or anything. And there was, at one point, there was a company that called me because they saw me from the restaurant. They called me saying, hey, we want to bring you in to perform. And they said, it's going to be at this hotel. And I said, okay, cool. I'm like, all right, I'm going to finally get some footage of me like on a stage or me in a nice hotel room and all that. But then they said it's going to be at this part in the hotel. And that part in the hotel, it was basically the buffet. So they were going to rent out this whole buffet section, and then it'd be like a cocktail type thing for all the workers. But I thought to myself, like, what? If I record this, it's still going to look like I'm in a restaurant. Even though they paid a good amount, I thought it's still going to look like I'm in a restaurant. And so I tried to convince him actually to move the event over to a different room. And I said like, oh, well, why do you guys have it at the restaurant? Like, why are you guys having it there? Why don't you have it like in a normal conference room? And he's like, oh, just because it's cheaper and all that stuff. And so I actually told him, I said, well, if I can get it for the same price, like, would you guys move? And I told him that because I was connected with the people at the hotel. Like, I was really connected with those guys. So I was sure that I could get them to move the whole thing over, because I was thinking at the time, venue determines value. So when I record myself, and when I record the testimonials, when I record myself performing for these people, if it looks like I'm in a nice setting, then I can improve my image. And that's what I was thinking about the whole time. And also what I really did is I focused on my website. So I thought to myself, does my website look good? So the whole time that I'm trying to get these gigs, I thought to myself, does my website look good? How do I make it look better? And I just thought image in general, image. And I thought, I did little things like this, okay? So I went to another entertainer's website, this celebrity guy out in the UK, and he's a top celebrity guy out there. I went to his website, and I'm looking at his site and I go to the contact page, and on the contact page, whereas I would normally put something like, hey, if you would like to hire Benji Bruce, contact this number. But he had an extra thing on there where he said, for media inquiries, contact this number. So it was contact us here if you'd like to book them. And then for media inquiries, contact us here. And I thought to myself, like, damn, this guy has a separate email just for media inquiries. This guy, my goodness. And I thought, wow, if that worked on me, I'm going to put that on my website too. So I put that on my website, and I had a separate email just for media inquiries. Even though I wasn't getting media inquiries, I just put that on my site. I put to contact Benji for an event, go here, and then to contact Benji for media inquiries, go here. And so it just sounded better. And I even changed up words where it said like to contact Benji. I changed those words to for availability. That way they would contact me to check my availability, basically indicating I'm probably already booked up. And so I did little things like that. That's just shifted the image. But at the same time, all these other entertainers were talking about, oh, you got to get likes to your Facebook page, get people to like your Facebook page and all that. And I thought to myself, I said, that makes no freaking sense. Like absolutely no sense in terms of just building up a real business. Because in fact, I had this quote, maybe I'll remember it in just a second, but what I realized that you can't get caught up in the image. A lot of people get caught up in the image where they forget to sell. They forget to make money. So it's like the saying of the fake it till you make it. You still got to make it. You can't just fake it the entire time. You got to realize that you're faking it till you make it. You're faking it so you can make it. It's not just fake it all the time. And so I realized it's not just about image. In fact, the quote that I created, I basically said this. I said, if your number of social media followers is bigger than your bank account, then you're building your business wrong. And a lot of people, they would focus on their social media followers. And especially nowadays, everyone's like, how many Instagram followers do I have? And how many Facebook likes do I have? I'm like, dude, what does your bank account look like? It has nothing to do with how many followers you have. It's all about what does your bank account look like. It's better to have a customer than to have a million followers and none of them are your customers. So I realized this. And so even though I was building the image, I was still focusing on building my sales process. And so I started out with cold calls, and I was calling people on the phone. I'm like, all right, hey, would you like to hire me? And at the time, I mean, I sounded like I was Michael Jackson, right? I'm in high school. I'm like, hey, would you like to hire entertainment like a mentalist? And so I sound like I'm Michael Jackson or something. And so I'm thinking, well, how do I do this better? Because one, I was really young. Two, I wasn't great on the phone. And so I said, you know what? Let me switch to something else. And then on top of that, what happened was I felt like I called about 100 people. All right. So I remember picking up the phone. I'm like, oh, I'm talking to people one after the other. Hey, how's it going? Oh, would you like to have some? Would you like? And at the end of a few hours, I'm like, yeah, I got through like 100 people. Yeah, go Benji, go Benji. Go Benji. And so I'm like going through all this. And then I look down at the actual number of people that I talked to, like I actually talked to on the phone. And it was 12. And I was like, what the hell? Like all that time that I spent, all the level of activity I engaged in, it was like 12 people that I actually talked to. And so I realized I got to do something different here. I can't just call people on the phone. So what I started doing, I started sending out emails. And emails, it was way more effective for me. I could talk to more people, reach out to more people. I could just send them straight to my website. So I basically started building up a better sales process. And from there, I realized people respond in similar ways. It's like whenever I perform something for people, they always say the one thing people always say is, how did you do that? That's the number one thing that people say. And even like when I was in restaurants, people would say things like, oh, can you make my check disappear? And they'd say things like that. And so this happens with sales as well. Whenever you're selling, you always get people who respond in similar ways. So I thought to myself, well, if people respond in similar ways, I should have a really good answer. Like I know they're going to say this, so I should have a really good answer. And I created these email templates. I created templates in terms of here's what I'm going to say, here's what they're probably going to say, and then when they say this, I'm going to say this. And so I created all these templates and I started to schedule out my days. And so a friend actually tell you this. I was living with a friend at the time, and he'll tell you, like, I scheduled out every section of my day, even the bathroom breaks. I said, okay, I'm going to wake up at this time. I'm going to eat. I'm going to do this and this. And then at this time to this time, I'm going to start sending out emails. And then after that, I'm going to take a quick break. Then I'm sending out emails and I'm going to take a break. And I scheduled everything, my entire day. And I did that just to make sure I was getting things done, getting the right things done. And after I'm doing this, I'm building out my sales process. I'm sending out emails. Now I need to change it up a little bit because I'm like, okay, sending out emails, but I can also do something that could be more effective, even though it's not reaching a huge quantity of people. So I started to do what's called hotel crashing. I went into a hotel, like I just walked into any hotel and I looked at whatever events were going on for the day and I walked straight into the event. I wasn't invited, I'd just walk straight in. I'd walk in and I start performing for people. And I would basically perform whatever I'd perform. People were flipping out and everything. I'd get some testimonials. And from there, I would ask to speak to the person in charge. Like, hey, who's in charge of this event? And I talk to myself and I introduce myself and I connect with this person because I knew that they would host events because they're hosting this event. So I would just hotel crash. And a lot of people that I've talked to, they were scared to do things like this. And one of the things that I noticed about really extremely successful people is they have no problem doing things like this. They have no problem just being aggressive, going out to get the business. So I would hotel crash on some days. And then when I was at an event, so I'd be at an event, let's say I got hired for an event or whether I hotel crashed or whatever, as I recorded testimonials, I would say things like, oh, so would you hire Benji Bruce for one of your events? And I would say it like that in third person as I'm recording it. Now, think about this. They're on camera. They're not going to say, no, I'd never hire this guy. They just saw me perform, and they're never going to say, no, I'd never hire this guy. So they would always say, yes, I would hire Benji Bruce for one of our events. At that moment, I would now kind of just like lower it. I mean, it's still recording, but I would get into like a conversation at that moment. I'd say, oh, so, I mean, do you guys have events going on or something? And at that moment, I'd try to network with them to see if they actually have events. If they said, yes, we really do have events, then I'd get their business information, their contact information. I'd follow up with them later. So I was using the video testimonial as an excuse to kind of go on to a conversation where I could actually connect with them about another event. And so that's what I would do. And I would do little things like that to actually get the gigs. But, and I want to say this, but the most important thing that I probably did out of everything was to save money. So as I was actually performing, as I was doing the restaurant magic, as I was getting gigs and like building out my sales process to get high paying corporate gigs, the whole time I would save my money, and I saved my money so I wouldn't be desperate for the next gig. So whenever at the time I was charging $200, then I'd say $500, then $1,000, then $2,500, then $5,000, then $10,000, then $15,000. And the reason why I was able to do that so fast is because I had money in the bank and I didn't need money from them. So whenever I would say, oh, it's going to cost you $5,000. And they said, oh, we don't have that much. We only have $500. I didn't need the money because I had money in the bank. So I could say, oh, you know what? Not interested. Thanks. And so I would do that. I saved a lot of money. And whenever you're not desperate, it just means you can do more because you're not afraid to lose this business. And so that was probably the main thing that allowed me to charge a lot of money for events and to get $20,000, $25,000 for events. Now, over time, by doing all this, I basically started getting more gigs. I built out my sales process because I focused on two things. And this is what I tell people. If you are marketing yourself, you got to focus on two things: building your personal brand, building your image, and then building the sales process. So it's image and influence, image and influence, image and influence. That's what it's about. That's how I got to the point where I could charge a lot of money for a 60-minute presentation because it was image and influence. If you like this, please share it. Please subscribe. If you don't like it, please share it. Please subscribe. I'm just covering myself either way. So just share and subscribe no matter what. If you want some more of this, share and subscribe.